This video is to help you complete your cash flow statement. So we're going to start with the sample cash flow template that you can download. This is the sample cash flow template. It has some data already in it. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to delete the data without deleting any of the formulas. So I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to delete this amount of data. But I want to keep the bolded rows because those have the formulas in them. So I'm going to go ahead and delete because this is from somebody else's business. I'll come over here as well and I'll delete that data. Okay, so now this might be a little bit easier for me to view to get started. The next thing we need to do is put in your anticipated monthly sales for months 1 through 12. And you can easily get those from your sales estimate that you should have already worked on previously. So I have my sales estimate right here for a business where I have some various hair salon services. Now, as you can see, we need a monthly revenue figure for our cash flow, but here we just have an annual revenue figure. So we need to calculate, first of all, what are our monthly sales? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy these services down to another section of the spreadsheet. And I know now how many I will sell per month, but I don't know what that adds up to be. So I'm also going to copy my price for each of these services. And then I'm going to create a formula that multiplies my number of services sold times the price. So I'll type equals, click on the first cell, the asterisk to do a multiply, and then I'll click on the first price. So now I'm multiplying how many haircuts I sold in month 1 times the price, so it's $75. And now that I have my first formula, I can just drag it on down, and then I get the rest of the total for that month. And now that I have my first month's sales, I can sum them up. So I'm going to create a total row here on my sales estimate, and then I'm going to sum it. To sum up multiple cells, you want to type equals, the word sum, the left parenthesis. What I like to do then is drag and highlight all of the cells and close out the parentheses. Now you can see that I have a total where it added up all of my services for the month. If I look at this formula, you'll see that it's summing up columns C13 all the way down to C19. And that's how it knows what to total up. Okay, so now I've gotten this for month 1. Now I can drag this formula, but in order to drag this formula, I have to do something a little bit extra. I can't just copy it over, because once I copy it over, now it's going to be multiplying month 2 times this column. I want to continue to multiply month 2 by this column, month 3 by this column. So I always want it to go back to B2. I don't want it to keep moving on to the other columns. All right, so how do I fix that? So I'm going to delete this. The way I do that is I tell Excel to always look at B2, even when I drag. Okay, even when I drag and copy the formulas. And the way to do that is I highlight my formula. In this case, it's actually B13. I want to tell it to always look at B13. And to do that, I type a $sign in front of the B and a $sign in front of the 13. That tells Excel when I copy and drag, you can change the formula for this part of the formula, but you want to always keep it on B2 or B13. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter. Now I need to do that for each of these columns. Okay, so I'm going to tell Excel to always use column B when it looks for the price. The quantity column can change, but column B needs to always stay the same for the price. Okay, so I'm going to put this $sign in there. So now once I do that, I can easily drag it over. And now to check my work, I sold 5 haircuts in month 2. I multiply it times 15, and that's 75. So it looks good. Now, in the total, I'm summing up each column, right? So that one I can just drag all the way over. When you see these little pound signs, that just means that Excel doesn't have enough room. So I just need to expand the column, and then it will expand automatically. There is a shortcut for that. It is called AutoFit, and it's under Format, AutoFit, Column Width, right here. So then it will automatically expand them all. Okay, so I did it. I have my total sales for every month. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put it in my cash flow. So Control C for copy, or Command C if you have a Mac. And then back over to my cash flow statement. Now I want to copy those values in here, but I don't want to copy the formula. I only want to copy the values. So I'm going to right click and click paste with the little 1, 2, 3. That will only copy the values over for me. So that's pretty nice, huh? So then it copies all the values. All right, so now I have my sales for every month for year 1. Now this section tells me how much of those sales do I collect in a month? Do my customers pay me that day, or do I bill them and invoice them and they pay me later? They might pay me month 4. Well, for most businesses, they do pay you that day. And in a hair salon, as far as I know, there's no billing going on. They're paying when they get the hairstyle done or whatever they're getting. So I'm just going to copy and paste that into same month. That means that I collect all my sales at the time of sale. Now, if you notice, the total doesn't copy over. So you just need to copy the formula all the way to the end, and it will drag that total over there. Okay, so now you've got your revenue and your cash receipt section done. The next section to work on is the operating cash disbursements. This is your expenses, your cost of goods sold, and then any of your fixed expenses. So I'm going to delete this because this is somebody else's fixed expenses. I'm going to leave cost of goods sold. That's my variable. Okay. Now I know from my profit and loss statement that I need more rows. I can't fit all of my expenses on here. So I'm just going to highlight multiple rows. I'm going to right click and click insert. That will allow Excel to add more rows. Okay. So now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to open up my profit and loss statement. And then I have my expenses. I've got my cost of goods sold. This is 7,000. Now this is for another business, right? Let's use this business instead. This is 1 month, 1 month's worth of sales. But it is for a different business. So what business should I choose just for this example? I think I'm going to copy these expenses. Okay, so I'm going to copy these monthly expenses, make sure they're the monthly fixed expenses. And I'm going to copy them over into my cash flow right here. All right, so now I have my monthly expenses. Now, most of the time, you've only averaged these out. You haven't really figured out different monthly expenses. So I'm just going to copy these all over. I'm just going to assume on average that I'm going to have the same expenses every month. Now, cost of goods sold is a different thing. That depends on what you sell. In this case, it's a hair business, so I don't have a cost of goods sold. I have no variable expenses. So I'm actually just going to enter 0 in here. If you do have variable expenses, you just need to put an estimate for each month's various variable expenses in there. Okay, good. So it's looking good. We're getting it filled out. Then I'm going to drag my formula down here. So this formula right here should add up all of these columns. The way that you can check that to make sure the formula is working is if you highlight it, so you click on it, and then you go up into the formula section, you click on that. It'll show you what columns it's adding up. If you need to add any columns, let's just add another one just to be for funsies. Then you just go in and you update the formula. Okay? Then once you update it, you want to drag it all the way down. So I have $1,500 worth of expenses. So actually it looks like I'm losing money every month. Well, this is just an example, okay? So now this formula, cash flow from operations, should take your total cash receipts right here, and it should subtract your total expenses. And so this is your net profit here, okay? Now, when you start a new business, you usually get an initial inflow of cash. Okay, maybe you put in some money. So this should match what you're putting in your funding section. So I'm going to say that I put in $30,000 of my own money to start the business, and I'm getting a bank loan of $50,000. Then I'm going to change this to startup costs. I have startup costs of $40,000. So I'm going to subtract those startup costs. Now, this is all a very unique thing for month one, okay? So this little section here is really just applicable for month one, unless, of course, you're getting more loans later on. So this formula here should add up any of the new money that you got from month one and subtract any of your expenses. And so overall, I invested $80,000, or I received $80,000 in funding, and I spent $40,000 in startup costs. So I'm starting with $40,000 in the bank, okay, which is a good thing because I lost money. All right. So now I'm going to go to my beginning and ending cash balance. This is like your checking account balance. So this is like what you have in the bank. I start out with zero, right? Because whenever I start a new business, I assume everybody's business starts with zero. Okay, because we always start on day one saying we have zero assets. Then any assets I give to the business, I put those on as a plus. And then at the end of the month, of month one sales, I'm going to have 39,000 left. And this ending should always be then copied over into the beginning of the next month. Whoops, I did that wrong. I need to copy the value. So your ending balance should always be your beginning balance of the next month. And you can enter a really easy formula for that. You can just say equals previous ending month. And then once I do that once, I can just drag it all the way down. And so for every month, it'll look to the previous months. And then this should be the same effort the same formula that was on this one. But is it adding up correctly? Let me see. I'm taking my cash and then I'm adding any additional investments, and I'm adding that to my previous balance, so that formula is correct. So at the end of the month, I will have the money I started with plus any new money I brought in plus any additional investments. And then once I get that formula, whoops, I messed that up. Once I get that formula, I just want to drag this over. All right. So then now I can see what money I'm bringing in every month or losing every month and how much I have in the bank. So this tells me the end balance of my banking account. And that's it. You just finished creating your first year's cash flow. Then you can just copy that to start out with your second year. But in your second year, remember, you're not going to have this, right? You're not going to have any new money coming in. So you want to delete these three cells right here because you don't have new money, you don't have new startup costs. So that's what you do for year two. And that's it.